there is a Rolling Stone interview from October 2014 in which Pendleton Ward describes why he quit running the show he created. He doesn't use the language of crisis or creative collapse or network interference. He says simply, "I quit because it was driving me nuts." And then, in the same interview, "For me, having quality of life outweighed the need to control this project and make it great all the time. That's it." That's the most direct statement from the person most responsible for Adventure Time's Golden Age, explaining why the Golden Age ended. Not a falling out, not a network mandate, not a single dramatic event that broke the show. Just a man who found that running a massively popular animated series was day by day and interaction by interaction, costing him more than he could sustainably pay. He was an introvert who had built a machine that required him to be constantly social, constantly decisive, constantly available to the dozens of people whose creative work required his input and direction, and he burned out. The decision to step down was made sometime during the 5th season. It was not announced. The Nerdist Archive article from November 2014 describes it with characteristic directness. The man with a plan stepped down as showrunner without making a fuss. He handed the role to Adam Muto, his CalArts classmate and collaborator from the beginning. And then he became a storyboard artist and storyline writer on the show he used to run, contributing from the inside, but no longer holding the architecture together. Tonight, we're going through the full story of how Adventure Time's Golden Age happened and how it ended. Not as a tragedy. The show's later seasons contain some of the best work it ever produced, and the finale is excellent, and the Distant Lands specials are excellent, and Fiona and Cake is excellent. But as a true story, with all of its specific and verifiable details about what it costs to build something extraordinary and what happens when the people who built it start to leave. This is the story of a creative ecosystem, the specific combination of people and processes and circumstances that produced the show's best work, and how that ecosystem changed. Get comfortable, this one takes a while, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It keeps us making these. Let's start at the beginning. Not at the show's premiere in 2010. Before that, Pendleton Ward attended CalArts, the California Institute of the Arts in Valencia. California is one of the most prestigious animation programs in the world. Its alumni include a disproportionate share of the people who have shaped contemporary animation. Tim Burton, Brad Bird, John Lasseter, Henry Selick, among many others. It is also where Ward met the specific group of people who would become Adventure Time's creative core. Adam Muto, Patrick McHale, Nicky Yang. The friendships and creative relationships formed at CalArts are the foundation of the show's production culture. The Wikipedia article on Ward describes the specific learning experience that shaped how he approached running a show. In 2008, Pendleton Ward worked on Cartoon Network's The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack as a writer and storyboard artist. Flapjack was a storyboard-driven show, meaning that the storyboard artists also wrote the episodes based on an outline. The experience inspired Penn to run Adventure Time the same way, storyboard-driven. This is the structural key to understanding everything that followed. In a conventional animated TV show, writers produce scripts which then go to storyboard artists who translate the scripts into visual panels. The writing and the visual development are separate stages. What Ward did on Adventure Time and what Flapjack did before it is collapse those stages into one. The storyboard artists are also the writers. They receive loose outlines and then develop the episodes visually and narratively simultaneously. What this produces, the episodes feel like they were made by artists rather than processed by a system. The specific personalities and obsessions and aesthetic preferences of individual storyboard artists are visible in the episodes they create. A Rebecca Sugar episode looks and feels different from a Tom Herpitch episode. An episode by Jesse Moynihan has a different philosophical register than one by Cole Sanchez. The storyboard-driven format is what made Adventure Time feel alive and particular in a way that conventionally produced animation rarely does. It also means the show is entirely dependent on the quality and specific sensibility of its storyboard artists. The system amplifies individual talent. It also amplifies individual departure. When a specific artist leaves, the episodes they would have made are not made. There is no script that another artist simply executes. There is an absence where their perspective used to be. In the early seasons, Adventure Time premiered April 5th, 2010. The Wikipedia article on the show documents the specific creative structure of the early production. Ward and his close collaborators, Muto, McHale, Osborne, and a rotating group of storyboard artists, built the show through its first 4 seasons with a specific creative culture. The IndieWire piece on the show's ending quotes Fred Seibert, describing Ward's approach. Ward did what great jazz composers do, bringing in all sorts of people, giving them building blocks, and then letting them bring their own ideas to the table. Jazz. The metaphor is accurate and important. Ward set up the conditions, the world, the tone, the characters, the specific combination of warmth and darkness that the show was going to operate in, and then invited people to improvise within those conditions. The best episodes of the early seasons are the product of that improvisation. Individual storyboard artists finding something specific and true within the framework Ward established, and then following it wherever it led. The first season averages 2 million viewers per episode per the Direct article on the show's production history. The numbers build from there. By the time the mythology starts deepening, Season 3's Holly Jolly Secrets, revealing Simon's past, Season 3's What Was Missing, establishing the bubbling subtext, the lore beginning to accumulate around the edges of the episodic adventures. The show has an audience of engaged, returning viewers who are tracking the larger story. The Golden Age, the fan community generally places the peak of Adventure Time's Golden Age across seasons 3, 4, and 5. The NeoGAF thread on the show's popularity decline, dated July 2017, puts the consensus among long-time fans at sometime around 2013 or 2014, which is late Season 5 and Season 6, as the beginning of the perceived decline. But the specifics of what made Seasons 3 through 5 so good are worth examining, because they are the specifics of what was lost. Season 3, Rebecca Sugar's fullest contributions. I Remember You, the Simon and Marceline song, episode aired October 15th, 2012, written and storyboarded by Sugar and Cole Sanchez, holds a 9.7 on IMDb. Simon and Marcy, Sugar's final storyboard as a full Adventure Time staff member, aired March 25th, 2013, and holds a 9.7 as well. These are among the highest rated episodes in the show's history. They are also the clearest examples of what Sugar specifically brought to the show. The willingness to let characters emote freely, the specific quality of the song she wrote, the emotional directness. The Wikipedia article on Sugar is precise about her departure. She continued working on Adventure Time until the show's 5th season, whereupon she left in order to focus on Steven Universe. Her last episode for Adventure Time was Simon and Marcy. Following that episode, working on both series simultaneously became impossible to do. Simon and Marcy is the peak, and it is also Sugar's goodbye. She went as high as the show went with Simon's tragedy, and then she left to make her own show. The Adventure Time reviewed blog, in its Q&A section, makes the assessment directly. I'm not one of those people who thinks that Sugar leaving the series killed it altogether, but I think her departure definitely affected the series on a musical level. Adventure Time is packed to the brim with talented storytellers, but when it comes to songwriting, Rebecca is kind of irreplaceable. The song list is the evidence. From Sugar's period, What Am I to You, Remember You, I Remember You, all gummed up inside, Everything Stays, Returned for Stakes, Time Adventure, Return for Finale, Sleepy Puppies, Good Little Girl / Bad Little Boy, The Adventure Time. Reviewed blog, I can count on one hand all of the AT songs I enjoy. post-season 5.2, while I can count all the songs I don't like on one hand. From the first 5 seasons, this is not a small loss. The show's emotional peaks were consistently anchored by songs. The specific emotional temperature of the series, its ability to go from comedy to devastation in 11 minutes, was partly a function of music. When the musician left, the show retained storytelling excellence, but something specific about the emotional delivery changed. The remaining songs were good. They were not the same. Patrick McHale, the first half of season 5, had McHale as part of the writer's room alongside Ward and Osborne. The Wikipedia article on the 5th season, for the first half of the season, the writer's room was largely composed of Ward, Kent Osborne and Pat McHale. McHale eventually left the series to create Over the Garden Wall, and Jack Pendarvis and the newly promoted Muto were brought on board to pen story outlines. Over the Garden Wall premiered October 2nd through October 3rd, 2014 on Cartoon Network. The Cartoon Network article on Adventure Time's serialization notes that it was Over the Garden Wall's success that encouraged the network to greenlight the Stakes miniseries. McHale left Adventure Time and immediately made one of the most critically acclaimed animated works of the decade. He didn't take Adventure Time's quality with him when he left. The show continued to produce excellent work, but his specific perspective, the one that had been present from the beginning and had contributed to the writer's room's creative culture, was gone. And Ward himself, the showrunner departure during the 5th season. The Wikipedia article on Ward is specific about the timeline. For the show's first 4.5 seasons, Ward served as the showrunner. 4.5 seasons. The first 4.5 seasons are almost exactly the period the fan community identifies as the Golden Age. The departure from the showrunner role happens simultaneously with the end of that period. The Cinema Blend article on Ward's departure quotes the Rolling Stone interview in depth. Dealing with people every day wears on you. To spend that extra energy and time you don't have to make something that's worth making, to make it awesome, wears you out. And I prefer to be isolated. I realise my comfort zone and I long for it. An introvert who built a creative institution and then found that the institution required extroversion to run. The Pendleton Ward Wikipedia article notes, as a naturally introverted person, he found interacting with and directing people every day to be exhausting. The show he made is a show about an extroverted boy who throws himself into the world with joyful abandon. The person who made it was someone who needed solitude and found that the show's success had made solitude unavailable. Adam Muto takes over. This is where most of the analysis of Adventure Time's perceived decline begins and ends, which is an oversimplification. Muto is not a lesser talent than Ward. He is a different sensibility. The Black Case Diaries article on the show's production history. When Muto took over, the show went in a different direction. Although the show never lost its sense of whimsy, the tone shifted to be more introspective. There were more series of episodes, rather than one-off adventures, and the plots became even more complex. Muto had been with the show from the beginning. He attended CalArts with Ward. He was trained specifically to take Ward's place. The Cinema Blend article. Adam Muto, classmate of Ward's at CalArts, started on the show years ago as a storyboard artist and was trained to take Ward's place. The transition was planned, at least in the sense that Muto had been developed for the role. He knew the show, knew the world, knew the creative culture. He was not an outside hire who arrived without context. But the show that Ward made and the show that Muto made are different shows, not worse. Different. The specific quality that Ward brought, the willingness to be absurd for its own sake, the no eraser approach to storytelling, the improvisational looseness that allowed episodes to be whatever they needed to be, gives way under Muto to something more deliberate, more serialised, more intentional. The IndieWire quote from Adam Muto about the network's initial resistance to serialisation. They were resistant at first. When pitched the move from episodic format to lore-heavy serialised stuff. Muto was driving the serialisation. He built the more structured, mythology-driven show that the later seasons became. Some fans loved this. The Neo-Gaff thread contains the counter-argument clearly. For me, the show was 100% about the lore, and the fun, random adventure was unpalatable filler. The serialised, mythology-heavy Adventure Time is the version this segment of the audience wanted, and the show delivered it. The 6th season contains Evergreen, Gold Stars, and The Comet, the episodes that fully articulate the show's cosmological framework. The 5th season has Simon and Marcy, The Vault, Betty. The later seasons have the Islands miniseries, the Stakes miniseries, Varmints. These are excellent episodes. Some of them are among the best episodes the show ever made, but the split in the fan base, documented in the Neo-Gaff thread and in the fan discourse of 2014 through 2018, is real and specific. The people who came to Adventure Time for episodic comedy adventure with dark undertones felt increasingly like the show was being made for someone else. The people who came for the mythology and lore felt increasingly frustrated by what they perceived as pacing problems and filler. When a show tries to serve two audiences simultaneously, it eventually reaches the point where serving one costs it the other, and the audience fractures. The scheduling problem. This is underemphasised in most analyses of Adventure Time's later period, and the Neo-Gaff thread is one of the few places that addresses it directly. Cartoon Network simply stopped caring, but not enough to actually cancel it. Late 2015 was when CN got into its current fuck it, and let's just fill the entire schedule with Teen Titans Go and Gumball phase. And that was when they stopped promoting just about anything that wasn't either a brand new series, We Bare Bears, PPG, Mighty Magus Wards, Ben 10, Gumball, or TTG. Adventure Time began airing in bomb weeks. Concentrated bursts of multiple episodes rather than a regular weekly slot. The Wikipedia article on the 7th season documents this. As with the 6th season, the 7th season of Adventure Time featured several bomb weeks, where new episodes debuted each day. A bomb week releases 5 or more episodes in 5 days and then nothing for months. This is a scheduling format that makes it genuinely difficult to follow a serialised show. You get an overwhelming amount of content in a short period, then a long drought, then another bomb. The pacing of the mythology, the slow build of revelations, the emotional weight accumulating over time is disrupted by this structure. The IndieWire article from 2017 notes the Cartoon Network had yet to announce a timeline for the rest of the show, even as the final season was underway. The network's relationship to the show in its final seasons is characterised by institutional indifference. They weren't cancelling it, but they weren't supporting it either. Episodes slipped out with minimal promotion. The show that had been a cultural phenomenon in 2012 and 2013 was now, as the Neo-Gaff thread puts it, airing like a thief in the night. The wrong audience problem. Fred Seibert, the animation producer who ran Channel Frederator, the production company that picked up Ward's original short, gave IndieWire the clearest articulation of why Cartoon Network ended the show. The Collider article synthesises it. The people buying merchandise weren't quite the kids aged 2 to 14 that Cartoon Network aims to reach, and the fact that Adventure Time has a significantly larger audience for that, a more expansive one, is great gravy, but they can't benefit from it directly. The audience that Adventure Time had built engaged older teens, young adults, the kind of viewers who would post in Reddit lore threads and buy specific merchandise and watch every episode multiple times, was not the audience that Cartoon Network could monetize through its standard advertiser relationships. A network's revenue depends on advertisers. Advertisers pay based on the demographic they're reaching. Cartoon Network's advertisers want to reach kids 2 to 14. Adventure Time's passionate, engaged audience skewed older. Arcane corporate rules prohibited the company from shifting it into the more sophisticated arena of its Adult Swim programming. The Collider article notes, so the show was caught in an institutional paradox, too dark and complex and lore-heavy and emotionally resonant for the audience Cartoon Network could monetize, and constrained from moving to Adult Swim, where that audience would have been the target. The Peabody Awards description of the show captures this precisely. Adventure Time has perhaps the most oddly tiered audience in all of television: pre-adolescents, hormonal teens, and self-aware adults, each demographic watching for different reasons. The wrong crowd for the network's purposes, not because the crowd was wrong, because the network structure couldn't accommodate them. The Ghost Shrimp departure. Phil Rinder, known professionally as Ghost Shrimp, was the head background designer for Adventure Time from the first season. His specific aesthetic, the layered, rich, colourful environments that gave the show its visual texture, is one of the most recognisable elements of the series. The Wikipedia article on the show notes, former head background designer Ghost Shrimp returned after having officially left the series during the 4th season. He returned for the finale as a former contributor. His departure during the 4th season is simultaneous with the window during which the show's visual aesthetic began, in some episodes, to feel slightly different from the earlier seasons. Background design in animation is not the first thing audiences consciously notice, but it is one of the first things they feel. The specific warmth of the early season's environments, the way the ruins and the candy colours all coexisted, is partly Ghost Shrimp's work. His departure is another piece of the ecosystem that changed. Skylar Page, the Wikipedia article on the 5th season notes, this was the last season of Adventure Time that Sugar and Page worked on. As they left before the season ended, Skylar Page created Clarence, his own Cartoon Network show, during this period. He subsequently left Adventure Time to run it. Page was a storyboard artist whose particular energy contributed to the show's creative diversity. Another departure, simultaneous with Sugar's, the Jesse Moynihan factor. Jesse Moynihan is a storyboard artist who worked on Adventure Time from the first season through the later periods, and whose specific episodes are among the show's most polarising. The Adventure Time reviewed Q&A identifies him as a controversial choice for Best Storyboard Artist, noting he was always trying to tell stories that AT never initially seemed capable of, even if it didn't always succeed. Moynihan's episodes, Dave, Puhoi, Astral Plane, The Mountain, are the show's most experimentally minded, most philosophically abstract, most willing to prioritise mood and idea over narrative coherence. They're also the episodes most commonly cited in discussions of the later season's unevenness. Moynihan stayed through the later period when many others had left. This is not a criticism of his work. It is an observation about what the show became when the specific constellation of voices around him changed. In the early seasons, Moynihan's philosophical experimentalism was one perspective among many, calibrated against Sugar's emotional expressiveness, McHale's narrative craft, Ward's improvisational energy. In the later seasons, the balancing voices were fewer, and what had been one distinctive note in a chord became more audible as an isolated element. Season 6's specific production challenges. The 6th season of Adventure Time is, in the fan discourse, simultaneously the most celebrated for episodes like Evergreen, Gold Stars, The Comet, The Cooler, and the most criticised for inconsistency. The Wikipedia article on Ward's departure notes that he continued to work on the series as a storyboard artist and storyline writer until late 2014, when he stopped regularly contributing to episode outlines, but still looked over stories, provided occasional input, and continued to storyboard for the series on a limited basis. This timeline means Ward's primary creative contribution ends during or after the 6th season, The 7th season is the first fully post-Ward production. The 6th season is the transition, Ward's output decreasing, Muto fully in charge, the new equilibrium finding itself. And the 6th season is exactly where fan perception begins to split most dramatically. Some episodes are brilliant, some are disorienting. The blend is less consistent than the earlier seasons. Season 6 is also the season that had 52 episodes, the same unusual length as Season 5. Producing 52 episodes of storyboard-driven animation requires an extraordinary amount of creative labour from the storyboard artists. The stress of that production volume, combined with the leadership transition, combined with the departure of key contributors, produced a season nerve that contains some of the show's best work, alongside some of its most uneven. The cartoon ecosystem shift. 2013 through 2015 is also the period during which the broader animated television landscape changed in ways that redistributed Adventure Time's audience. Several shows created by Adventure Time alumni launched during this period and drew fans who had been watching Adventure Time, primarily for the mythology and emotional depth. Steven Universe premiered November 4th, 2013, created by Rebecca Sugar. Almost immediately, a segment of Adventure Time's older fan community began migrating. The NeoGAF thread notes. Pen Ward left, Rebecca Sugar left, and Steven Universe replaced it to a lot of people. And Adventure Time, Season 6's lacklustre finale, right into Steven Universe's amazing Season 1 finale in 2015, basically created a mass exodus of Adventure Time fans into Steven Universe. Over the Garden Wall premiered October 2014, created by Patrick McHale, who had just left Adventure Time's writer's room. It was critically acclaimed as one of the finest animated miniseries ever produced. The fan community that had loved Adventure Time for its blend of adventure and emotional depth found a version of that blend executed with exceptional craft in McHale's new project, and many of them stayed. Gravity Falls ran from 2012 to 2016. Not an Adventure Time alums production, but occupying a similar cultural space. Serialized mythology, emotional depth, excellent comedy, younger protagonist who ages meaningfully. The NeoGAF thread. Other shows came along for people to get invested in the lore/humour mix, like Gravity Falls, Steven Universe. Adventure Time had pioneered this combination. By the mid-2000s, the combination was available in multiple places. Its audience had more options. This is not anyone's failure. It is the natural consequence of Adventure Time's influence. The show created the conditions for Steven Universe, Over the Garden Wall, Gravity Falls, and others to exist. Those shows then drew from the same well of fan enthusiasm that Adventure Time had built. The ecosystem Adventure Time helped create eventually competed with Adventure Time for the attention it had once monopolised. The Rick and Morty factor. The NeoGAF thread mentions Rick and Morty explicitly, a giant problem with a lot of modern cartoon shows. Too much fucking lore. Adults who are into these deeper lines of story are going to move on to adult shows that just do these things better. Rick and Morty premiered December 2013 on Adult Swim. Its first 2 seasons, 2013 to 2014, establish it as a prestige animated series for the adult viewer who wants mythology, lore, emotional depth, and serialized storytelling without the constraint of a children's audience. Rick and Morty can go where Adventure Time cannot. It can kill characters more definitively, explore darker themes more explicitly, be more direct about the emotional weight of its world. Some of Adventure Time's most engaged, older audience found in Rick and Morty a version of what they wanted from Adventure Time that was less constrained by network requirements, the scheduling impact on perception, beyond the content itself, the irregular scheduling of Adventure Time's later seasons affected how audiences experienced the show's quality. The bomb week format, 5 episodes in 5 days, then nothing for months, is not a format that serves serialized storytelling. The Neo-Gaff thread, some of its audience has likely aged out of it a bit. There were definitely missteps in season 5 and 6, but they weren't as bad as people made them out to be. The perception of quality decline was partly a perception of availability decline. A show you have to actively seek out in irregular schedule bombs feels different from a show that's part of your weekly television routine. The Islands miniseries and the Stakes miniseries represent the show's attempted solution to this problem. The concentrated release of story-driven content in a format that could be experienced as a complete narrative unit. Stakes and Islands are both excellent. They are both better, in some critical consensus, than the surrounding season's regular episodes. This suggests the problem was not the creative capacity of the team, but the format of the show's deployment. What Ward actually did that nobody could replicate. Let me be specific about this because it is the most important thing to understand about why the golden age ended. Ward did not run Adventure Time through executive decision-making alone. He ran it through his personality and his taste. The Wikipedia article notes the description of his process. In an interview with the AV Club in 2012, Ward said, "We start off by just shooting the breeze and telling weird stories about what happened to us during the week. That's a writer's room, but it's also a description of a creative culture built on the specific quality of Ward's attention. He was the person the room was calibrated around. His responses to stories, what made him laugh, what made him uncomfortable, what made him lean forward, were the informal mechanism by which the show's tone was maintained. When an introvert burns out on running a room and starts withdrawing, the room doesn't stop working, but it loses the specific calibration that his presence provided. The New Republic article describes what Ward brought. Creator Pendleton Ward has described his storyboarding process as unexpected, and this no-eraser way of animating lends itself to the show's signature style of discontinuity. Often episodes have anticlimactic non-endings that leave the viewer asking, what the fuck did I just watch? The anticlimactic non-endings, the specific willingness to let episodes end without resolution, to trust that the moment was complete, even if the story wasn't. This is Ward's sensibility. It's very specific. It's also very difficult to maintain as institutional culture rather than individual practice. Under Muto, the show becomes more intentional about its conclusions. Episodes tie off more deliberately. The mythology builds more systematically. This is not worse, it is different. And the specific feeling of Adventure Time, the feeling of being in the presence of someone whose mind works in a way you can't quite predict, who will give you something unexpected precisely when you think you know what's coming, is harder to find in the later seasons. The show never actually declined in technical quality. This is the part that needs to be said clearly, because the discourse around Adventure Time's golden age ending sometimes implies that the later seasons are bad. They're not bad. They contain excellent episodes, excellent character work, excellent mythology. The 5th season has some of the show's finest individual episodes. The 7th season's Stakes miniseries is a sustained, emotional achievement. The Islands miniseries is exceptional. The finale is excellent. The show maintained real creative ambition to the end. What declined was something harder to define. The feeling of a show being made by a specific group of friends who were following their instincts together, who were playing jazz in the specific way that jazz requires the specific musicians who know each other's timing. As the musicians changed, as Sugar left, McHale left, Ward stepped back, Ghost Shrimp stepped back, Skylar Page left. The music continued, but the ensemble was different, still good, not the same. The Midnight Gospel is relevant here. After fully stepping back from Adventure Time, Ward went on to create The Midnight Gospel for Netflix in 2020, collaborating with comedian Duncan Trussell, a show about a spacecaster who interviews people on dying planets, completely unlike Adventure Time in form. Absolutely recognisably, Pendleton Ward in sensibility, the warmth and the darkness in the same frame, the philosophical depth embedded in apparent absurdity, the emotional honesty that arrives unexpectedly. Ward did not lose his creative capacity when he left Adventure Time. He was protecting it by leaving. The structural argument why the Golden Age could not have lasted, the Golden Age of Adventure Time, was the product of a specific and unrepeatable set of circumstances. Ward, fresh from the formative experience of Flapjack, running a storyboard-driven show with his CalArts friends, before the show's success made it a machine that required industrial management rather than creative friendship. Sugar before Steven Universe, McHale before Over the Garden Wall, a small enough team that the creative culture could be maintained through Ward's personality rather than institutional structures. As the show grew, 14 million weekly viewers by its peak, a massive merchandise empire, cultural ubiquity, the production requirements grew with it, more episodes, longer seasons, more oversight, more institutional structure. The jazz ensemble became, not all at once but gradually, something more like an orchestra. Orchestras make excellent music, but they require conductors rather than band leaders, and they lose the specific improvisational quality that jazz produces when a small group of people who know each other's timing are playing together in real time. This is not Cartoon Network's fault. Specifically, it is not Muto's fault. It is the natural consequence of what happens when something small and specific becomes large and institutional. The magic is not destroyed. It is distributed across a larger surface area and becomes therefore thinner, less concentrated. The individual episodes of the Golden Age have a density of feeling that comes from the specific circumstances that produced them. Those circumstances could not be maintained indefinitely. The question of whether the Golden Age was worth having, even though it had to end, has a clear answer. Yes, the Adventure Time that Ward, Sugar, McHale, Muto, Herpich, Sanchez, Moynihan, Wolfhard, and the rest of the early team made is one of the finest animated works in television history. It changed what animated television is. It changed what was permitted in children's entertainment. It produced Steven Universe, Over the Garden Wall, and the conditions for a decade of excellent animated series. Its ending was the ending of something specific and irreplaceable. Its existence was something that didn't have to happen, and did. The Peabody Award citation describes the show at its peak. Adventure Time has perhaps the most oddly tiered audience in all of television. Pre-adolescents, hormonal teens, and self-aware adults. Each demographic watching for different reasons, and some are the same. That's because this series, about the experiences of a teenage boy and his canine wingman in a post-apocalyptic land called Ooo, is animated alchemy, an impossible mashup of comedy, horror, fairy tale, and coming-of-age fable. Animated alchemy. The specific word is right. Alchemy, the transformation of base materials into something more valuable than the sum of their parts, through a process that is not fully replicable and not fully understood. Adventure Time was animated alchemy for a specific period of time, in the specific conditions of its early seasons, with the specific people who made it then. The alchemy changed. When the conditions changed, the show continued. The show remained good. The alchemy was a moment and moment's end. Thank you for spending this time with me tonight. This one felt important to document honestly, not as a tragedy, not as anyone's failure, but as the true story of what it costs to make something extraordinary and what happens to it over time. Subscribe if you haven't. Come back. Good night. Expansion A, the specific production culture of the early seasons and why it worked. Let me spend real time on what the early production culture of Adventure Time actually was, because most accounts of it are too abstract to fully convey what made it so generative. The storyboard-driven process in Ward's hands was something specific. The Wikipedia article on the show describes it. Action and dialogue for episodes were decided by storyboard artists based on rough outlines. The rough outlines were exactly that, rough. Ward and the writer's room. In the early seasons, Ward, Muto, McHale, and Osborne primarily would develop a loose outline for an episode. The storyboard artist would receive this outline and then develop the actual episode from it, making creative decisions at every level. What the characters said, how scenes were staged, where the emotional beats landed, how the comedy worked, what the ending felt like. The IndieWire article from 2017 quotes Ward describing the early process. In its early days, he compared the writing process to playing Dungeons and Dragons, with writers incorporating new ingredients into the land of Ucanon as they moved along. This is the jazz metaphor extended into D&D terms. The world has rules and a setting, but what happens in any given session depends on what the players bring to the table and the specific contingencies of the moment. The practical consequence: the show accumulated its mythology organically through the creative decisions of individual storyboard artists in the act of making specific episodes. The backstory of the Mushroom War was not planned out in a Season 1 writer's room. It was built piece by piece through the decisions of individual artists who noticed that the ruins in the background needed to be there for a reason, that the Ice King's backstory needed a real weight, that the connection between the candy-coloured present and the nuclear past needed to be more than aesthetic. This process is only possible when the people doing the storyboarding have both the creative latitude to make these decisions and the sensibility to make them well. In the early seasons, the specific group of people Ward had assembled, Sugar, McHale, Herpich, Sanchez, Wolfhard, Moynihan, Castuera, Ito, had both. They were indie comic artists, most of them. It's people whose creative instincts had been developed in the specific culture of independent comics where you make every decision yourself and the work is personal, and the reader either connects or doesn't. They were not primarily television writers, they were artists who were making television. The New Republic article identifies this. The show has consistently cultivated young creatives like storyboard artist Rebecca Sugar, who went on to become Cartoon Network's first female show creator at 26 with Steven Universe. Young creatives, the early seasons of Adventure Time, were made primarily by people in their mid to late 20s who were relatively early in their careers and whose creative instincts had not yet been institutionalized. There is a specific quality of creative work that comes from that period, not better than the work of experienced professionals, but different, with a willingness to take risks that comes from not yet having a lot to lose. Ward himself was 27 when the show premiered. Sugar was in her mid-20s when she joined. McHale was around the same age. Muto, slightly older. This was a group of young artists who had found each other at CalArts or through the specific networks of independent animation, who had been trusted by Cartoon Network to make a show that nobody was quite sure would work, who had the latitude to make it exactly as strange and specific and emotionally honest as they wanted to. The CalArts connection is more than biographical detail. CalArts has a specific pedagogical approach, the emphasis on personal voice, on the artist's individual perspective as the primary source of the work's value. Students at CalArts are not primarily trained to execute other people's visions. They are trained to develop and express their own. The Adventure Time creative team is largely made up of CalArts graduates, and the show reflects this. It is a show built on the specific personal voices of its contributing artists, rather than a show with a unified house style that individual artists execute. This is why specific episodes are so immediately identifiable by who made them. Sugar's episodes have a particular quality of emotional expressiveness and character vulnerability. Her pitches have a tendency toward squash and stretch exaggeration and formal experimentation. Wolfhard's are often the most lore-dense and mythology-building. Sanchez and Ristaino's often have the strongest comedy. Moynihan's the most philosophically abstract. When you watch the early seasons, you can feel the different personalities, even if you don't know whose name is on the episode. This is the creative ecosystem Ward built. It is the ecosystem that the early seasons exist in. It is also, structurally, an ecosystem that depends on the specific people in it, and that therefore cannot survive the departure of those people without changing significantly. Expansion. Rebecca Sugar's specific contribution, fully documented. Rebecca Sugar's contribution to Adventure Time is the most documented individual artistic impact on the show's golden age, and it deserves the full accounting it rarely receives. The Wikipedia article on Sugar is explicit about her background joining the show. Sugar first joined the crew of Adventure Time as a storyboard revisionist during the show's first season. Due to the quality of her work, within a month of being hired, she was promoted to a storyboard artist a month. The quality of her work was immediately evident enough that she was promoted within 4 weeks of starting. This is unusual in any creative context and suggests the specific quality of her instincts was immediately recognisable. Sugar told Paper Magazine that the creative team at Adventure Time, Ward, McHale, Muto, told her to put her own life experiences into the character of Marceline and to not hold anything back. The invitation to personal honesty. Marceline has developed, partly through Sugar's attention, has become the character most directly connected to the show's emotional core: grief, abandonment, the weight of time, the difficulty of returning to something you loved that has changed. These are the specific emotional registers that Sugar brought from her own experience. I Remember You. October 15th, 2012. This is the episode that most concisely demonstrates what Sugar uniquely brought to Adventure Time. Co-storyboarded with Cole Sanchez, the episode runs 11 minutes and contains one of the finest sustained emotional passages in animated television history. The Ice King has letters he doesn't know he has written to Marceline from when he was Simon and she was a child in the ruins and he was leaving. She finds them, realises what they are, and sets them to music. They sing together without either of them fully knowing why it matters. The specific quality of the episode: it achieves devastating emotional impact, not by explaining its tragedy, but by dramatising a moment in which the tragedy is present without being acknowledged. The Ice King and Marceline don't have the conversation about who he was. They can't. He doesn't have access to the memory that would make the conversation possible. They just sing together, and the audience holds the full weight of what is happening, while the characters can only partially feel it. This is a very specific and difficult emotional technique. Sugar executes it perfectly. The Omnichord, the famous story from the recording session of I Remember You. Sugar brought her Omnichord, a portable electronic musical instrument with a distinctive electronic tone, to the session. During the initial pitch to the room, the Omnichord's battery began dying mid-song. Rather than stop, Sugar continued playing and singing as the instrument slowed and the pitch dropped. The room went silent. The song, delivered on a dying instrument in an impromptu setting, landed with the full weight of what it was trying to do. The battery's failure became part of the presentation. The imperfection was the point. This anecdote captures something specific about what Sugar brought: the willingness to let the moment be what it is, including its failures, rather than polishing it into something safer. The Adventure Time of the Golden Age has this quality. Moments are allowed to be rough and real, and not fully explained. Emotions are allowed to be uncomfortable rather than resolved. This is Sugar's influence operating throughout the show, not just in her specific episodes. Her songs, let me list them properly. What Am I to You? From It Came from the Nightosphere, Season 2. Remember You? From I Remember You, Season 4. All Gummed Up Inside, from Incendium, Season 3. Bad Little Boy and Good Little Girl, from Bad Little Boy, Season 5. Sleepy Puppies, I'm Just Your Problem, from What Was Missing, Season 3, which Sugar wrote with Adam Muto. And then in returns, Everything Stays for the Stakes miniseries, Season 7, and Time Adventure for the series finale. Each of these songs is immediately identifiable. Each of them is emotionally complete in itself. Each of them does something the show's regular storytelling does differently. Reaches an emotional place more directly through melody and lyric than the show's visual storytelling can reach alone. The Adventure Time reviewed analysis is accurate. The show's musical quality after Sugar's departure is noticeably different. Not absent, Love in the Darkness, Island Song, the Food Chain Jazz number are all excellent, but different in kind. The specific emotional directness of Sugar's songs, the willingness to be openly sad or openly longing without ironic distance, is harder to find in the later seasons. The show's later music tends toward the oblique, the atmospheric, the thematically suggestive, rather than the emotionally direct. This is also a symptom of the broader shift in the show's emotional approach. Muto's Adventure Time tends to let emotions live in subtext rather than text, to trust the viewer to feel what isn't said. Both approaches are valid. One of them is specifically Sugar's expansion. Patrick McHale and the Writer's Room dynamic. Patrick McHale is the least individually documented of the three major figures whose departure shaped the end of Adventure Time's golden age, which is partly because his primary contribution was to the writer's room structure, rather than to the publicly visible storyboard output. The Wikipedia article on the 5th season identifies his role precisely. For the first half of the season, the writer's room was largely composed of Ward, Kent Osborne, and Pat McHale. 3 people. The early Adventure Time writer's room was essentially 3 people, Ward, McHale, and Osborne, whose creative dynamic with each other shaped the outlines that the storyboard artists then executed. McHale's departure from this room during the 5th season's second half is when Jack Pendarvis and the newly promoted Muto step in. McHale's subsequent work tells you what he brought to the room. Over the Garden Wall is a mini-series of 10 11-minute episodes, aired October 2014 on Cartoon Network, that is widely considered one of the finest animated works of its decade. The Wikipedia description: it follows 2 brothers who become lost in a magical forest and try to find their way home, encountering increasingly strange and threatening situations as they journey. Over the Garden Wall has something that Adventure Time's later seasons sometimes struggled to maintain: narrative economy. Every episode is precisely what it needs to be. No more and no less. The mythology accumulates without feeling bloated. The emotional weight is distributed across the story's full structure. This is exceptional craft, and it reflects what McHale was doing in Adventure Time's writer's room, helping to give the outlines, the narrative shape and economy that allowed the storyboard artists to do their best work. The Adventure Time reviewed blog credits both Herpich and Wolfhard as the show's finest individual storyboard artists in terms of writing efficiency. Both were active through the later seasons, maintaining excellence in their individual episodes. The issue was not individual episode quality, but the outline structure that the episodes were built from. And the outline structure was McHale's domain. When he left, the outlines changed. The third quality McHale brought: a specific relationship to horror. Over the Garden Wall has a distinctive quality of fairy tale dread, the sense of something genuinely threatening beneath the whimsy. Adventure Time's early seasons have this too: the Lich's first appearance, the post-apocalyptic ruins in the background. the genuine darkness in the Lemongrab arc. McHale's sensibility for fairy tale dread calibrated the show's darker registers. His departure is one of the reasons the later season's darkness sometimes feels more earnest and less uncanny. Expansion. The network relationship in full depth. The relationship between Adventure Time and Cartoon Network is more complex than either the CN cancelled a great show narrative or that the show ran its course naturally. Narrative can capture. Let me trace it carefully. The network was initially uncertain about the show. The Wikipedia article, Cartoon Network was still concerned about the direction of the new series. McHale later recalled that during the pitch of an episode titled Brothers in Insomnia, which for various reasons was scrapped, the room was filled with executives from Cartoon Network. The pitch went well, but the production staff was soon inundated with questions about the stylistic nature of the series. And around this time, Cartoon Network paused the production of the show in an attempt to resolve these creative issues. A number of writers and animators were let go. The network's initial instinct was to correct the show's strangeness. It was only through the subsequent storyboarding of Prisoners of Love and the hiring of SpongeBob veterans Derek Dryman, Meriwether Williams, and Nick Jennings to ensure that both Cartoon Network and the show's production crew were on the same creative page, that the network and the production team reached a workable alignment. This early tension is important context for everything that follows. Cartoon Network was always somewhat uncertain about Adventure Time. It supported the show while it was producing the highest viewership it had produced, and it grew uncertain again as the audience shifted. The network's enthusiasm for the show was always partly contingent on its ratings performance. When the ratings began declining in the later seasons, the network's enthusiasm declined with them. The ratings numbers are documented in the Wikipedia article on the 7th season. The season premiere was viewed by 1.07 million viewers. This marked a decrease in ratings from the previous season finale, Hot Diggity Doom / The Comet. And the season finale, The Thin Yellow Line, was watched by 1.15 million viewers. This made it the lowest rated Adventure Time season finale at the time, from peak viewership of over 3 million per episode to 1.15 million for a season finale. The audience had contracted significantly. The Collider article frames what happened structurally. The show built an audience that Cartoon Network couldn't monetize, and the audience it was supposed to serve, kids 2 to 14, moved on as the show became more complex. Cartoon Network couldn't move the show to Adult Swim, where the existing audience would have been the target demographic, because of arcane corporate rules about what programming belongs to which block. The show was stranded between two audiences and two network identities. By 2017, Cartoon Network confirmed that the series would conclude after its 10th season. The confirmation came September 29, 2016. The show had already been effectively winding down. Staff were quietly shifting to other projects throughout 2017, as the Collider article notes. The ending was not abrupt. It was a gradual organisational conclusion as people planned their next projects, and the show's remaining episodes were produced. What's notable about the finale period is that Cartoon Network gave the creative team the space to make a genuine finale. The Wikipedia article, according to Osborne, Cartoon Network provided the writers with an opportunity to spend a lot of time thinking about the finale before production ended. The network may not have served the show well during its middle seasons, but it gave the end the time it needed. The finale, written and storyboarded by Tom Herpick, Steve Wolfhard, Seo Kim, Sonvale Xylophone, Hannah K. Nystrom, Alex Senwald, Sam Alden, and Graham Falk, is an extraordinary piece of television. Expansion. What made the Golden Age feel golden and how to identify it. I want to be specific about what Golden Age means in the context of Adventure Time because the term gets used loosely and the specific qualities it refers to deserve precise identification. The Golden Age broadly seasons 3 through 5, with the strongest clustering around seasons 3 and 4, has several distinguishing characteristics that the later seasons do not consistently maintain. The first, the balance between episodic and serialized. In the Golden Age, the show produces both excellent standalone episodes and episodes that advance the mythology, and both types feel essential. You can watch Rainy Day Daydream without knowing the show's lore and be completely satisfied. You can watch I Remember You and feel the full weight of the mythology you've been building with the show. The balance is maintained. Neither mode crowds out the other. In the later seasons, the balance tips. The mythology-heavy episodes become more frequent. The standalone episodes sometimes feel like interruptions of ongoing narrative rather than complete small stories. The show's original promise that every 11 minutes could be its own complete thing becomes harder to fulfill when the mythology is dense enough that episodes carry significant contextual requirements. The second, emotional honesty that arrives unexpectedly. The Golden Age episodes have a specific quality of emotional surprise. You're watching what seems like a comedy about a boy and a dog going on an adventure, and then without warning, you're in the middle of something emotionally true and specific and serious, and then you're back in the comedy, and the comedy feels different because of what just happened. This rhythm, comedy, sudden depth, return to comedy, is one of the show's most distinctive achievements. In the later seasons, the emotional depth is more consistently present but less surprising. The audience knows the show is going to be emotionally serious because the mythology has trained them to expect it. The surprise of the early seasons' emotional honesty is partly a function of those seasons not yet having established the reputation for emotional seriousness. The show becomes a victim of its own success. The depth it established makes the depth feel expected rather than discovered. The third, specific character voice. The early seasons episodes have an extraordinary consistency of character voice. Finn sounds like Finn, Jake sounds like Jake, Marceline sounds like Marceline, the Ice King sounds like the Ice King, despite being produced by different storyboard artists. The consistency comes from the specific calibration of the creative team and from Ward's oversight. In the later seasons, character voices are generally still good, but there are occasional episodes in which characters feel slightly off, slightly flatter, slightly more expository, slightly less themselves. This is the natural consequence of a production process that depends on individual artistic sensibility and whose individual artists have changed. The fourth, a specific quality of fun. The early seasons are genuinely fun to watch in a way that the later seasons are sometimes not. Not because the later seasons are boring, many of them are exceptional, but because the specific pleasure of watching Adventure Time in its golden age has a quality that is hard to recreate. The pleasure of being in the presence of something alive, something that might do anything next, something that is clearly being made by people who are delighting in the making of it. This quality is present throughout the show's run in specific episodes, but it is the consistent baseline of the Golden Age in a way that it is not the consistent baseline of the later seasons. Expansion F, what happened after and why it matters. The story of the Golden Age's ending is not the story of a disaster. It is the story of a creative ecosystem that produced something extraordinary, then changed, and then, in different circumstances, with some of the same people, produced something extraordinary again. Rebecca Sugar made Steven Universe. The show ran from 2013 to 2019 and is one of the finest animated series of the decade. It explores everything Sugar wanted to explore about identity, love, chosen family, the complexity of non-human consciousness, and the specific quality of grief that comes from loving someone who is not quite who they used to be. The emotional directness that distinguished her Adventure Time episodes runs through every season of Steven Universe. She did not leave Adventure Time and stop making great work. She left and started making great work in her own name. Patrick McHale made Over the Garden Wall, and then, as of the 2024 Annecy announcement, has been involved in developing the Adventure Time movie alongside Sugar and Muto. He did not leave and disappear. He left and made something that demonstrated exactly what his contribution to Adventure Time had been. Pendleton Ward made The Midnight Gospel with Netflix. He made it exactly the way he makes everything, improvisationally, personally, and with the specific willingness to be uncertain and follow the uncertainty into whatever it produces. The Midnight Gospel is not like Adventure Time in form or setting, but it is absolutely Pendleton Ward in sensibility. Warm and dark and philosophically honest and willing to be strange. And Adventure Time itself continued, made excellent episodes, concluded with a finale that many consider among the finest series finales in animated television history, and then extended into The Distant Lands, Specials and Fiona and Cake, both of which contain work that ranks with the show's best. The Golden Age ended. The show did not end. The quality of the work did not end. This is the full picture. The Golden Age was specific, unrepeatable, and limited to the conditions that produced it. And those conditions eventually changed. And the creative people, whose specific combination produced the Golden Age, went on to make other extraordinary things. And the show they left continued without them, maintained by the people who remained, through to a conclusion that honoured everything the show had been. The Golden Age is not something that was lost. It is something that was made and that ended as specific periods. In creative ecosystems always end, and that left behind both the work that was made in it and the people who were changed by making it. Those people made Steven Universe and Over the Garden Wall and The Midnight Gospel. They are making the Adventure Time movie. The Golden Age is over, and its consequences are still unfolding. Expansion. Reading the later seasons correctly, I want to push back slightly but specifically on the framing that the later seasons are a falling off from the Golden Age. They are a different thing. That's not the same as a lesser thing. The 6th season contains Evergreen, which is one of the finest individual episodes in the show's entire run. The episode that reveals the Crown's 65 million year origin, the story of Gunther and Urgent's Evergreen, the specific emotional texture of a child who loves his abuser and whose love accidentally cursed the world. This is exceptional work. It was made during the season the fan discourse most commonly identifies as the beginning of the decline. The 6th season also contains Gold Stars, the episode in which the Lich speaks, and what he says is both cosmic and specific. The Comet, which completes the show's cosmological framework and gives the season a conclusion of genuine grandeur. The Cooler, which is both an adventure episode and a piece of political philosophy. These are not the work of a show in decline. The 7th season's Stakes miniseries is a sustained piece of Marceline storytelling that ranks with the show's best character work. Everything Stays, Sugar returning to write the song for the episode about Elise, is one of the finest things in Adventure Time's entire output. Obsidian, which aired as a Distant Lands special but exists in narrative continuity with the Stakes arc, is in many critics' assessment the finest piece of Adventure Time content that exists. The Islands miniseries is excellent. It gives Finn his origin story with patience and care that the regular season structure wouldn't have accommodated. The 9th season's Gumball arc is uneven but contains the show's finest Princess Bubblegum storytelling. The series finale is extraordinary. The later seasons are not the Golden Age. They are something else. A show that has matured into a different mode, that has accepted its serialized nature, that has a different creative leadership, and a different emotional approach. The comparison to the Golden Age will always show what was lost in the change. It will also, if the comparison is honest, show what was gained, a clarity of mythological purpose, a willingness to commit to emotional weight rather than dancing around it, a conclusion that was genuinely planned and executed rather than accumulated and improvised. Both periods of Adventure Time are good. The Golden Age is irreplaceable. The later period is not it. Both of those things are true. Expansion. H, the institutional legacy. And what comes next? Adventure Time's institutional legacy is the most under-examined part of its story, and it's the part that demonstrates most clearly why the end of the Golden Age was not the end of the thing. The Golden Age represented, the show launched careers. Rebecca Sugar's career at Cartoon Network, Patrick McHale's career as a showrunner, Adam Muto's career as a showrunner, Kent Osborne, Jack Pendarvis, Tom Herpich, Steve Wolfhard, Ako Castuera, Jesse Moynihan, Cole Sanchez, all of them are working in animation in various capacities. After Adventure Time ended, many of them making their own projects, they're contributing to a broader culture of creator-driven animated television that Adventure Time helped establish. The New Republic article from 2017, storyboarder Julia Potts, short film Summer Camp Island, a hit at the 2017 Sundance Film Festival, was recently picked up as a series, and several Adventure Time alumni, including Osborne, have joined its staff. The alumni spread outward, carrying the creative culture with them, contributing to the next generation of shows. The Golden Age produced people. The people produced more work. The work continues. The Adventure Time movie, announced at Annecy in June 2024, will be written by Rebecca Sugar, with Ward and McHale involved in development. Alongside Muto, the four people whose departures most defined the end of the Golden Age will be working together on its continuation. Whatever the movie produces, it will be the reunion of the creative ecosystem that made the Golden Age. Older, different, changed by everything they have each individually experienced since, trying to make something that honours what they made together. Fred Seibert told IndieWire, Kenny said, "Just this week, I'm doing voice work on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Powerpuff Girls, and Samurai Jack, shows that have concluded more than once. The implication, Adventure Time will return. It has already returned, through the distant lands, specials and Fiona and Cake. It will return through the movie. The Golden Age is over, but the thing the Golden Age was an expression of the specific creative sensibility of Pendleton Ward and the people he gathered around him is not over. Appendix, the production timeline, in full. Season 1, April 5th to September 13th, 2010. Ward is showrunner. The creative team is assembled. The show's tone, world, and characters are established. Rebecca Sugar joins in the first season and is promoted to storyboard artist within a month. Patrick McHale is in the writer's room. Average viewership, approximately 2 million per episode. Season 2, October 11th, 2010 to May 9th, 2011. The mythology begins deepening. Evicted establishes Marceline's importance. It came from the Nightosphere, gives Hudson Abadir and the Fry Song. Holly Jolly Secrets begins the Simon revelation. Sugar's contributions become more central. Season 3, July 11th, 2011 to February 13th, 2012. What was missing? September 26th, 2011, the Bubline subtext established. Holly Jolly Secrets Part 2, The Crown Diaries, Memory of a Memory, the first substantial Marceline backstory. I Remember You, arguably the peak of the Golden Age, October 15th, 2012. Note, This aired in Season 4. Season 4, April 2nd, 2012 to October 22nd, 2012. I Remember You airs October 15th. The mythology is now central to the show's cultural reputation. The show is at its peak. Cultural prominence. Viewership reaches its highest levels. Season 5, November 12th, 2012 to March 17th, 2014. Twice the length of any previous season at 52 episodes. Ward steps down as showrunner at some point during this season. Simon and Marcy airs March 25th, 2013. Sugar's final storyboard as a full staff member. Sugar departs to focus on Steven Universe. McHale departs to develop Over the Garden Wall. Skylar Page departs to create Clarence. The writer's room shifts. Pendarvis and Muto step into the outline structure. Betty airs March 31st, 2014. Simon creates a portal to the pre-war world. The Vault airs September 16th, 2013, Shuko's story. Season 6, April 21st, 2014 to July 6th, 2015. Ward's storyboard contributions end in late 2014. He stopped regularly contributing to episode outlines by November 2014. The season contains Evergreen, Gold Stars, The Comet, The Cooler, some of the finest episodes of the run, alongside episodes that are more uneven. Viewership begins declining. Ghost Shrimp left during the 4th season. The background design is now under different supervision. Season 7, November 2nd, 2015 to March 11th, 2016. The first season with Ward, no longer regularly contributing outlines. Bonnie and Neddy premieres to 1.07 million viewers. Stakes miniseries airs November 16th to 19th, 2015, averaging 1.8 million viewers per episode. The Stakes miniseries is a season's creative peak. Sugar returns to write Everything Stays. The season finale, The Thin Yellow Line, is the lowest rated Adventure Time season finale at the time. Season 8, April 18th to November 17th, 2016. Islands miniseries airs January to February 2017. Finn's biological mother, Minerva, is introduced. The human civilization's post-war history is documented in detail. Season 9, September 18th to December 11th, 2017. The Gumbald Arc, the Great Gum War setup. Season 10, April 6th to September 3rd, 2018. The final season. Come Along With Me airs September 3rd, 2018. Written and storyboarded by Herpich, Wolfhard, Seo Kim, Sonville Xylophone, Hannah K. Nostrom, Alex Senwald, Sam Alden, and Graham Falk. The show concludes after 283 episodes across 8 years. Distant Lands, BMO, June 25th, 2020. Obsidian, November 19th, 2020. The New York Times Best TV Episode of 2020. Together Again, May 27th, 2021. Wizard City, September 2nd, 2021. Fiona and Cake, August 31st to October 5th, 2023. Adventure Time movie, announced at Annecy, June 2024, to be written by Rebecca Sugar, alongside Ward, McHale and Muto. The Golden Age's core creative team reunited. The Timeline is the full story, a show that peaked when its founding creative team was fully assembled, that changed as that team changed, that continued to make excellent work through its conclusion, and that ended and continues to end and continues to begin again as one of the most consequential animated series in television history. Expansion 1. What Pendleton Ward actually brought, and how hard it is to describe. I want to try to describe, as precisely as possible, what made Pendleton Ward's creative presence irreplaceable, not as a talent comparison to Adam Muto, who was also excellent, but as a specific quality that the show had when he was running it, and that changed when he wasn't. The Ward Wikipedia article describes his influences: home movies and Dr. Katz, professional therapist, as influences, largely because both shows are relaxing and feature conversational dialogue that feels natural and is neither over the top nor cartoony and shrill. Relaxing, conversational, natural. These are unusual words to describe the inspiration for a show as weird and chaotic as Adventure Time, but they describe something real about what the show is at its best. The characters talk to each other the way actual people talk, with the specific rhythms and deflections and non sequiturs of real conversation. The comedy is not joke structured, it is observation structured. The New Republic article on the show's appeal quotes Ward describing the show: it's Candyland on the surface and dark underneath, and that's why it's compelling, I think. Ward had a specific understanding of the show's tonal contract with its audience. The darkness is always present, but is always contextualised by the warmth. Neither the warmth nor the darkness eliminates the other. They coexist in the same frame, and that coexistence is the thing. This understanding, applied in the showrunner role, means that every creative decision Ward made about what to allow was calibrated around this contract. A moment could go dark, but it couldn't go so dark that the warmth was consumed. A moment could go warm, but it couldn't go so warm that the darkness was forgotten. The contract had to be maintained in both directions. This is the specific creative judgment that showrunning requires, and that is extremely difficult to teach or institutionalise. It is a sensibility, and Ward's sensibility had been developed over years of making animation and thinking about what animation was for. When Ward stopped running the show, the calibration changed. Not toward worse, toward different. Muto's calibration leans toward the darkness more directly. Adventures. Time under Muto is more willing to let dark moments be uncomplicatedly dark, more willing to sustain emotional weight without the comedic relief that the early seasons used to punctuate it. Some fans found this more emotionally satisfying. Others found it less true to the show they had loved. Both reactions are responses to a real change in calibration. The no eraser creative process. Ward described his storyboarding approach as never using an eraser. Whatever he drew, he kept. This applies metaphorically to his creative decisions as showrunner. Once something was established in the world, it was real and had to be incorporated. The mythology accumulated through this principle. The Lich's backstory, the Mushroom War, Simon's history, all of it. None of it was planned in the way that deliberate mythology building plans things. As it grew through the accumulation of decisions that each followed logically from the previous decisions without being overridden by a master plan. This process produces a mythology that feels organic and surprising, rather than engineered. The revelation that the Ice King was Simon Petrikov, that he had protected Marceline in the ruins, that the crown had taken him. This lands with the weight it does, partly because the show built toward it through small decisions across 3 seasons without knowing, in the early stages, exactly what it was building toward. The show discovered its own mythology through the process of making it. Under Muto's showrunning, the mythology becomes more deliberately architected. The later seasons know what they're building toward and build toward it with intention. The cosmological framework, the Catalyst Comets, GOLB, the elemental cycle, is carefully constructed across multiple seasons with specific payoffs planned. This is more sophisticated mythology building. In some technical sense, is also less surprising. The show knows what it's going to do before it does it, and the feeling of organic discovery is harder to maintain. The specific quality of Ward's personal strangeness. The Cinema Blend article quotes from his Rolling Stone interview. Ward described himself as an awkward, overweight child with a bowl cut, who never knew his dad and had difficulty understanding people, and would take notes on the people he knew, trying to make sense of the characters around him. He loved Dungeons and Dragons, he roller skated to the comic shop felt like an outsider who was trying to understand the world by observing it. This biography matters because it is the source of the specific quality of Adventure Time's characterization. The characters in the show, including the most absurd ones, are observed with a quality of attention that comes from someone who has spent a long time trying to understand people by watching them carefully. The Ice King's loneliness is not a cartoon villain's loneliness. It is the specific loneliness of someone who has been broken into something that cannot be healed and doesn't quite know what it lost. The Lemongrab's pain is not a comedy character's dysfunction. It is the specific pain of someone who was made wrong and is trying to exist in a world where they don't fit. These characters are observed. They are not constructed. Ward observed his way to these characters because observing people was how he understood them. The specific quality of observation he brought, developed across decades of being an outsider who watched carefully, is not reproducible by the production process. It's personal. Expansion. J. The serialization. Debate and what it tells us. The NeoGAF thread on Adventure. Time's popularity decline contains the sharpest fan articulation of what went wrong. And it's worth quoting in depth because the debate within the thread captures something real. The pro-serialization position. For me, the show was 100% about the lore, and the fun, random adventure was unpalatable filler. The fact we feel the opposite is probably symptomatic of why the show has dropped off. The pro-episodic position. I think this is a giant problem with a lot of modern cartoon shows. Too much fucking lore. God fucking damn. Not every cartoon has to be up its own arse for years building out some deep story. Both of these are real audience positions, and the Adam Muto interview with the Direct confirms that the shift towards serialization was a deliberate creative choice, one that Cartoon Network initially resisted, then embraced as a marketing tool. They were resistant at first, but then it became sort of a marketing thing, like you could package a bunch of episodes. The network's motivation for eventually supporting serialization was not aesthetic. It was logistical. Serialized episodes could be packaged and sold as event programming. Bomb Weeks miniseries in ways that made them easier to market and distribute. The serialization that many fans experienced as a creative deterioration was, from the network's perspective, a distribution advantage. Episodes that needed to be watched in sequence could be sold as a unit. What this created, a show that was simultaneously more coherent narratively and less accessible episodically. A new viewer could not drop into season 7 and get a complete experience from a single episode. They needed context. The context was available. The mythology was well documented in the fan community and on the wiki, but the barrier to entry was higher than it had been in the early seasons, when any episode was a complete, self-contained, small story. The barrier to entry increased at the same time that Cartoon Network's promotional support decreased. A show with high barriers to entry needs strong promotional support to maintain and grow its audience. The shows that benefit from Cartoon Network's promotional efforts in the 2015 to 2018 period are new shows, new IP that needs to be introduced, new toys that need to be sold. Adventure Time, already established, gets deprioritized. New viewers who might have been attracted by promotional campaigns don't receive those campaigns. The existing audience is sufficient, but gradually declining. The scheduling format, Bomb Weeks with months-long gaps, made it actively difficult to stay current with the show, even for dedicated fans. If you missed a Bomb Week, you missed 5 episodes. If those episodes contained significant mythology development, you were now behind in ways that required catch-up viewing. The casual viewer who might have watched whatever was on doesn't follow a Bomb Week schedule. Only the dedicated fan actively seeks out Bomb Weeks and watches all the episodes. The dedicated fan is already watching. The casual viewer is lost. This structural mismatch between the show's serialised ambition and its irregular distribution is one of the most under-examined reasons for the ratings decline. It is also the part of the story least attributable to creative choices. The show could have maintained the quality of its serialised storytelling and still lost half its audience, simply through the scheduling dysfunction, expansion, the talented people who stayed and what they produced, the framing of adventure. Times later seasons as a fall-off from the golden age is inadequate because it doesn't account for the extraordinary quality of the work produced by the people who stayed. Tom Herpich and Steve Wolfhard. Their collaborative work in the later seasons, including the Stakes miniseries and the series finale, is among the finest storyboarding in the show's entire run. The Adventure Time Reviewed blog identifies Herpich as one of its top choices for Best Storyboard Artist. Tom Herpich or Jesse Moynihan. Herpich and Wolfhard storyboarded The Dark Cloud in the Stakes miniseries, for which they won a Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Animation at the 68th Emmy Awards. An Emmy for individual work in the show's 7th season, during the period of the perceived decline. Evergreen, storyboarded by Herpich and Wolfhard, and aired January 15th, 2015, is the episode most frequently cited by critics and fans as the finest single episode of the show's entire run. It aired in the 6th season, the season most commonly identified as the beginning of the decline. The finest episode of the show aired during the decline. This is important. The discourse about the golden age ending sometimes implies a narrative in which the show's quality declined after the departures. The Emmys don't support this narrative. Bad Jubies, also from the 7th season, the first post-war outline season, won an Annie Award for Best Animated Television Broadcast Production for Children. The 7th season produced both the year's Emmy-winning and Annie-winning animated work. Cole Sanchez and Andy Ristino, the duo whose work The Adventure Time reviewed blog credits for the funniest episodes, continued working through the later seasons. The Cooler, Season 6, Episode 22, is their work. So is Simon and Marcy, co-storyboarded with Sugar. So are multiple other excellent episodes. Sanchez and Ristino did not decline. The show built around them became more uneven, but their individual contributions remained strong. Ako Castuera, Sonvile Xiophone, Seo Kim, Graham Falk, the storyboard artists who contributed to the later seasons and the finale, did not produce inferior work to the early seasons. What changed was the cultural context around the work, the departures that had already occurred, the reduced promotional support, the irregular scheduling, the audience fragmentation. The work itself in many episodes remained excellent. The Adventures Time reviewed Q&A on the question of what the show would have been without Sugar concludes, I don't think that Rebecca staying would have saved the show by any means, because I don't think the show really needed saving. This is an important corrective. The show did not need saving. It was producing excellent work to the end. What it lost was not excellence, but a specific character. The specific character of a show being made by the exact group of people who made its early seasons in the exact circumstances that existed at the beginning of their careers. That character was irreplaceable. The show without it was still excellent. Both things are true. Expansion, L. The significance of the finale and what it says about what endured. The series finale, Come Along With Me, which aired September 3rd, 2018, is the test of what survived the changes of the Golden Age's ending, because a finale can only work if it has earned the weight it's carrying. If the mythology is coherent, the characters are real, the emotional stakes are genuine, the closure is satisfying, the finale is excellent. The Wikipedia article confirms that Cartoon Network gave the creative team significant time to develop it. Cartoon Network provided the writers with an opportunity to spend a lot of time thinking about the finale before production ended. The show's final creative push was done with institutional support, enough time, and the full attention of the remaining team. The kiss. Marceline and Princess Bubblegum kissing during Golb's attack on the Candy Kingdom is the finale's emotional centerpiece, and it is earned because the mythology built it across the entire run of the show without the Simon and Marceline history that Sugar largely built, without the Bubline subtext that Sugar established in What Was Missing, without the distance and the t-shirt and the estrangement and the I'm Just Your Problem and the varmints and the cooler. The kiss is the accumulation of everything the show built. It could not exist without the Golden Age. It demonstrates that the Golden Age's work endured in the show's DNA even after the Golden Age ended. Sugar returned to write time adventure for the finale. McHale's influence is visible in the finale's narrative structure. Ward is credited as story consultant. The finale, written and produced in the show's final phase, is made possible by the work that the Golden Age produced, the mythology, the characters, the emotional stakes, and is a testimony to the endurance of that work. The final flash forward, Sweet Pea is a Mountain, Shermie and Beth in the far future, BMO narrating the Gum War to people who weren't there, is the show completing its vision of what it was building toward, not an end, but a continuation in different forms. The show ends as it lived, with the world continuing after the specific story is done, with the adventure going on in new forms and new people, with the warmth and the darkness still coexisting in the same frame. This is what the Golden Age produced. Not just the episodes that were made in it, the whole show, including the finale, including the Distant Land specials, including Fiona and Cake. The Golden Age ended, the show it made did not. Thank you for being here for all of this. This one was about something real, the specific costs and conditions and circumstances of making something extraordinary. And what happens when those conditions change? It's not a tragedy, it's not a failure, it's the true story of how creative work lives and changes and continues. Subscribe if you haven't. Come back. Good night. Expansion. The full story of the show's audience. Problem in every detail. The audience problem that ended. Adventure Time's run at Cartoon Network is worth tracing in full detail because it is the least discussed and most consequential external factor in the show's history. Adventure Time's audience was, from early in its run, strange. The Peabody Awards citation describes it as perhaps the most oddly tiered audience in all of television. Pre-adolescents, hormonal teens, and self-aware adults. Each demographic watching for different reasons, and some are the same. The CSUN article documents the early evidence of this. Over 300,000 deviations with the tag Adventure Time have been uploaded to the art sharing site deviantart.com, which doesn't allow users under 13 years old. The most dedicated fans, the ones producing fan art, buying merchandise, tracking the mythology, are older than 13. In some cases, significantly older. This audience configuration is a structural problem for an advertising-supported children's network. The network's advertisers are paying to reach children aged 2 to 14. Advertisers who want to reach older teens or adults buy ads on different networks with different programming. Cartoon Network cannot charge adult demographic advertising rates for Adventure Time because the show airs on a children's network, even though a significant portion of its audience consists of adults who are not the children's network's target. The Collider article synthesizes Fred Seibert's IndieWire statement clearly. The adult Adventure Time audience is great gravy, desirable in an abstract sense, but Cartoon Network can't benefit from it directly. The audience is there. The revenue structure can't capture it. The show generates enthusiasm that doesn't translate to the specific kind of revenue that justifies continued investment. The merchandise paradox. Adventure Time was a merchandise juggernaut. The Cinema Blend article notes, among the 14 million viewers a week, the popularity of the show has spawned a massive merchandise empire. 14 million viewers, an empire of merchandise. But the Collider article identifies the problem. The people buying the merchandise weren't quite the kids aged 2 to 14 that Cartoon Network aims to reach. Adults were buying Adventure Time merchandise, shirts, backpacks, action figures, onesie pajamas, in quantities that exceeded children's purchasing. Adults have more money than children and can buy more merchandise per person, but adult merchandise buyers don't interact with Cartoon Network's toy and licensing ecosystem in the same way. They buy through online retailers, through Hot Topic, through specialty stores that are not part of the children's retail ecosystem that Cartoon Network's licensing deals are structured around. The show was enormously popular and commercially successful. By any ordinary measure, it was commercially unsuccessful by the specific measure that Cartoon Network's business model required. The Adult Swim wall. The show could have been moved to Adult Swim, where the demographic mismatch would have been solved. Adventure Time's adult audience is exactly Adult Swim's target. But the Collider article confirms that arcane corporate rules prohibited the company from shifting it into the more sophisticated arena of its Adult Swim programming. The corporate structure of Turner Broadcasting, which owned both Cartoon Network and Adult Swim, had rules that governed what content could appear on which block. Adventure Time, as a Cartoon Network production with a children's audience alongside its adult audience, couldn't simply be moved to Adult Swim. The content wasn't dark enough for Adult Swim's programming identity. The demographic wasn't clean enough for Cartoon Network's advertising model. The show was caught in the middle. This institutional trap, the show too adult for one platform and too childlike for the other, is one of the clearest examples of how corporate structure can constrain creative work in ways that have nothing to do with the work's quality. Adventure Time was exactly as good in its final seasons as it had been in its golden age. What changed was the network's ability to monetize the audience the show had built. The show was ending because of a spreadsheet problem, not a creative problem. The digital transition, 2015 to 2018, is also the period during which streaming significantly disrupted traditional television viewership. Kids who, in 2013, watched Cartoon Network on cable were in 2017 watching YouTube and Netflix. The Cartoon Network viewership decline documented in the THEOASG article. The network's viewership fell 26% in 2021, began earlier than that, as younger audiences migrated to streaming platforms and YouTube. Cartoon Network's ratings declined across all its programming. Adventure Time's declining ratings were partly a function of the show's specific audience dynamics and partly a function of cable television's general decline during the streaming era. A show that peaked in 2012 and 2013 before the full streaming transition would naturally have lower ratings in 2017 and 2018, even if it maintained identical quality. The measurement tool, cable viewership, was measuring a declining share of the actual audience as more and more viewers moved to platforms where their viewing wasn't counted in the same way. Expansion. What the golden age actually produced for animation. The golden age of Adventure Time did not just produce excellent television, it produced a demonstrably different animation industry. The show's specific combination of creator-driven storyboarding, emotional depth, progressive representation, and respect for a multi-demographic audience became the template for a decade of animated television. Steven Universe, created by Rebecca Sugar, the first non-binary cartoon creator in Cartoon Network's history. The show runs from 2013 to 2019 and explores identity, trauma, love, and chosen family with a depth and emotional honesty that Sugar developed working on Adventure Time. The show is explicitly LGBT inclusive. The crystal gems are canonically non-binary in ways that Adventure Time pointed toward without being able to fully execute. Steven Universe pushed further than Adventure Time because Sugar had more creative control over her own show. But it was Adventure Time that gave her the skills, the cultural context, and the first significant audience for animation of this type. Over the Garden Wall, created by Patrick McHale, the former Adventure Time creative director. The mini-series format, a complete story in 10 episodes, released over 5 nights. It was influenced by the success of Adventure Time's serialised storytelling and made possible by the goodwill Cartoon Network had toward Adventure Time alumni. The Wikipedia article on the Stakes miniseries confirms that CN was encouraged to greenlight the miniseries after the success of the 2014 event series Over the Garden Wall. Adventure Time produced McHale. McHale made Over the Garden Wall. Over the Garden Wall's success influenced Adventure Time's own production decisions. Gravity Falls, not directly an Adventure Time alum project, but creator Alex Hirsch has cited Adventure Time's combination of humour and mythology as an influence. Gravity Falls ran from 2012 to 2016 and demonstrated that a mystery, mythology-focused animated series could maintain audience engagement through a sustained, serialised narrative. Hirsch's approach was more deliberately planned than Ward's improvisational method, but both shows contributed to establishing serialised mythology as a legitimate approach for animated children's television. The Midnight Gospel, Ward's own post-Adventure Time project, a show structured around recorded conversations animated in wildly experimental ways, exploring grief, death, addiction, and consciousness with complete openness. Nothing about it could have been made on Cartoon Network. It is Adventure Time's DNA without Adventure Time's constraints. Ward made it when he finally had the creative freedom that stepping back from Adventure Time eventually allowed. The broader animation renaissance, the period from 2010 through the early 2020s, is widely described as a golden age of animated television, and Adventure Time is consistently identified as its initiating work. Steven Universe, Gravity Falls, The Amazing World of Gumball, which premiered October 2011, the same network, a different creative approach. Over the Garden Wall, Star versus the Forces of Evil, OKKO, Let's Be Heroes, Amphibia, The Owl House. All of these shows were produced in an environment that Adventure Time helped create, either by demonstrating what was possible or by training the people who made them. The representation achievement. Adventure Time's progressive ethos, explored in the New Republic article, extends specifically to LGBT representation. The Bub Line arc, which ran from the subtext of what was missing in 2011 to the explicit confirmation of the series finale in 2018, was the longest running LGBT storyline in animated children's television at the time of its conclusion. The Collider article notes that the Adventure Time crew moved on with making Bubblegum and Marceline canon in a media ecosystem that was still so against same-sex romance in children's programming. The show completed this arc in 2018, and the Obsidian Distant Land special in 2020 gave the relationship its fullest and most explicit treatment. These choices were made by the show's creative team, including Muto, whose show-running decisions enabled the relationship's development after Ward's departure. The Golden Age planted the seeds. The later seasons grew them to their conclusion. Expansion. The question of whether the Golden Age needed to end. One last thing I want to address directly. The question of whether the Golden Age's ending was inevitable or avoidable. The answer is complicated. Some of the factors that ended the Golden Age were structural and inevitable. The show could not remain small and intimate when it became a cultural phenomenon with 14 million weekly viewers. The production requirements would have grown regardless of who was running it. The audience would have shifted regardless of the creative quality. The streaming transition would have disrupted the ratings regardless of the show's content. Some factors were contingent. Sugar's departure was contingent on Steven Universe being greenlit. If Cartoon Network hadn't greenlit Steven Universe, Sugar might have stayed through more of Adventure Time. McHale's departure was contingent on Over the Garden Wall being possible as a project. If the miniseries format hadn't been available, McHale might have stayed. Ward's burnout was contingent on his specific personality and the specific demands of show running. A different person with a different personality might have been able to sustain the role longer. But here's the thing, the factors that caused Sugar's departure, her being talented and creative enough to be given her own show. McHale's departure, his being talented and creative enough to make a critically acclaimed miniseries. And Ward's burnout, his creative product having become so successful that it required institutional management. All of these are consequences of the success of the Golden Age itself. The Golden Age produced its own ending. The work was so good that the people who made it were given the opportunities to make other things. The show's success made it a machine that required a kind of management that its creator couldn't sustainably provide. This is not tragic. It is the natural consequence of making something that matters. The Golden Age mattered enough that the people who made it were given more to do. They did more. The show continued without them, changed and continued, and produced a conclusion that honoured everything they had built. Ward told Rolling Stone, "I quit because it was driving me nuts." He said this not with sadness, but with relief. He got his quality of life back. He made the Midnight Gospel. He is working on the Adventure Time movie. The Golden Age ended when it needed to end for the people who made it. And those people went on to lives and creative work that were better for the ending. That's the full picture, not a tragedy, a transition, a passing of a creative flame from one vessel to another, and then to others. The flame itself continuing, even as the specific circumstances of its original burning changed. The Golden Age of Adventure Time is over and will not return. What it produced: 10 seasons, 4 Distant Land specials, Fiona and Cake, Steven Universe, Over the Garden Wall, an animation industry changed by its existence, continues and will continue. That's the answer to why Adventure Time's Golden Age ended, and that's why its ending was, in the fullest sense of the word, okay. Thank you. Good night. Expansion, the specific quality of each season and how the shift felt in real time. Let me trace, season by season, how the shift from Golden Age to the post-Golden Age was experienced by people who were watching the show as it aired. This is not a critical accounting. I've done that already, but an attempt to describe the specific texture of the experience of watching the show change in real time. Season 3, 2011 to 2012. This is the season in which Adventure Time goes from a show people really like to a show that people feel is doing something genuinely new and important in animation. What Was Missing airs September 26th, 2011, and the fan community responds to the Bubline subtext with the intensity of recognition, the sense that the show was saying something true about a type of relationship that children's programming rarely acknowledged. Holly Jolly Secrets Part 2 airs November 21st, 2011, and the Ice King becomes someone other than a villain in real time Watching these episodes on their original air dates, the feeling is of a show discovering what it is capable of and reaching for it. Season 4, 2012, The Cultural Moment, 14 million viewers. I Remember You airs October 15th. Reddit threads documenting the mythology become essential internet culture. The show is everywhere. In fan art, in Tumblr posts, in dorm room conversations, in the specific way that a piece of culture becomes the shared reference point of a generation. Watching it in real time has a quality of collective experience, the feeling of seeing something specific and particular become universal. Season 5, 2012 to 2014, the longest season, 52 episodes. In real time, the volume is overwhelming. Keeping up with 52 episodes of storyboard-driven animation that requires close attention is a different commitment from following previous seasons. Some episodes, Simon and Marcy, The Vault, Betty, are extraordinary. Others feel like the show moving through necessary storytelling rather than finding the surprising, emotional truth. The season ends with departures that the fan community is beginning to notice. Season 6, 2014 to 2015. In real time, this is when the divergence begins. Some episodes are the best the show has ever made. Others feel longer than they need to be, or more navel-gazing, or more uncertain about what they are trying to do. Evergreen lands in January 2015, and the fan community recognises it as something extraordinary. But Sad Face and Jake Suit don't land the same way. The show's consistency is lower than it has been. The bomb week scheduling means that in any given week you get 5 episodes in 5 days, and some of them will be excellent and some will be uneven. This inconsistency, not dramatic decline, but inconsistency, is what the fan community is responding to when it describes the golden age as having ended. It is not that the show became bad, it is that it stopped being reliably great. The certainty that any given episode would be good had been one of the gifts of the golden age. In the 6th season, you couldn't assume that. Season 7, 2015 to 2016. The Stakes miniseries is the recovery. 8 episodes that are focused, emotionally committed, musically strong, because Sugar returned, and clearly the show's best sustained creative effort in several seasons. The rest of the season is more variable. The bomb week scheduling produces periods of saturation and then long gaps of absence. The show's presence in the cultural conversation is lower than it was during the golden age. New fans are harder to recruit. The mythology is too dense for casual viewing, and the scheduling doesn't support the kind of recommendation to watching pipeline that the earlier seasons had. The fan community segments during this period, some fans follow every episode with the same dedication they gave the golden age and find plenty to appreciate. Others check in for specific events, the mini-series, season finales, and otherwise let the show drift from their active attention. The latter group's exit from regular viewing is the decline that the ratings show. Season 8 through 10, 2016 to 2018. The show is winding down. Everyone involved knows the show is winding down. The Islands mini-series in early 2017 is excellent. The best received creative effort since Stakes. The Gumball arc in season 9 is more uneven, and the series finale is extraordinary. The ending of the show, when it comes, is both sad and satisfying. There is enough time to say goodbye properly, and the goodbye is said. In real time, the end of Adventure Time has a quality of appropriate conclusion rather than premature cancellation. The show ends when it seems ready to end, with all the major story arcs resolved and the characters given their proper endings. The Golden Age is several years in the past by this point, and the fans, who were there for it, have grown up alongside the show they loved. Finn has grown up, the audience has grown up, the adventure is over, and the next one is about to begin. Expansion. The full story of what the Golden Age was for. I want to end with the broadest possible frame for what Adventure Time's Golden Age was for. why it mattered, what it changed, what it left behind. The New Republic article from 2017 describes the show's cultural position during the Golden Age. Part of adventure, Time's millennial appeal is no mystery. The team of writers, animators, and producers driving the show skews very young. Ward was only 27 when Adventure Time premiered in 2010, and the show has consistently cultivated young creatives like storyboard artist Rebecca Sugar, who went on to become Cartoon Network's first female show creator at 26, with Steven Universe. 27 years old, Ward was 27 when he launched one of the most successful animated series in television history. Sugar was in her mid-20s when she joined. McHale was around the same age. This was a show made by young people who had been given extraordinary creative freedom by a network that was, at least initially, not sure what it had, and they used the freedom to make something that changed what animation was. The Pendleton Ward Wikipedia article notes his influences: home movies, Dr. Katz, Dungeons and Dragons, Hayao Miyazaki's My Neighbor, Totoro, independent comics, the CalArts tradition. These are not the influences that produce a conventional children's cartoon. They are the influences of someone who approached animation as an art form rather than a commercial product, who had spent years in the specific culture of CalArts and independent comics, where the assumption is that what matters is what the work is saying and how it says it, not whether it fits existing commercial templates. Adventure Time's golden age happened because this person, this specific introvert who roller skated to the comic shop and took notes on people he didn't understand, was given a platform by a network that was desperate enough for a hit that it let him make exactly the show he wanted to make. And the show he wanted to make was so specific and personal and alive that it became a phenomenon. And then the phenomenon required management, and the management required a kind of consistent social engagement that the introvert who roller skated to the comic shop could not sustainably provide. And so he stepped back, and the show changed. This is the full story. A specific person with a specific sensibility developed over a specific biography, given a specific creative opportunity, produced something specific and irreplaceable, and then the opportunity grew into something that the specific person couldn't hold alone. And then the people around the specific person took the thing he built and continued it, changed it, yes, developed it in ways that reflected their own sensibilities, and produced work that honoured what he built, even as it became something different. The golden age of Adventure Time was the period when Pendleton Ward's specific sensibility was most fully expressed through the show he made. It was also, inevitably, the period that produced the conditions for its own ending, the success that required institutional management, the talent that produced options for the people who had it, the creative energy that found its way into Steven Universe and Over the Garden Wall and The Midnight Gospel and the shows that came after. The golden age ended because it was alive enough to produce its own consequences, and that's okay. That's what living things do. Thank you for spending this time with me tonight. If you've made it here, you've spent a long time thinking about something that was made with a lot of care by people who cared about it. Subscribe if you haven't. It keeps us making these. Come back. Good night. And one last thing. Pendleton Ward, in the Rolling Stone interview, says this: I quit because it was driving me nuts. For me, having quality of life outweighed the need to control this project and make it great all the time. The need to make it great all the time. This is the phrase that stays with me. He didn't quit because he stopped caring about making it great. He quit because the need to make it great all the time was more than a person can carry indefinitely. And he knew himself well enough to know that carrying it past the breaking point would make it worse rather than better. This is wisdom. Not every creative person has it. Not everyone knows when to let go. Not everyone can look at something they built and say, someone else will carry this now. Oh man, that's right. And I will be better for not carrying it anymore. Ward had this wisdom. He used it. The show and the person both survived. And then he made The Midnight Gospel. And now he's making the Adventure Time movie. The golden age ended when it needed to end. The person who made it went on to the next thing. The show went on to its conclusion, and all of it, the ending and the going on and the conclusion, was the right thing at the right time. That's the complete story. Thank you for being here for it. Good night. Production. Notes. Key dates and figures for reference. Adventure Time aired April 5th, 2010 to September 3rd, 2018 on Cartoon Network. 283 episodes across 10 seasons, 4 distant lands, specials on HBO Max 2020 to 2021. Fiona and Cake, spin-off on Max 2023. Pendleton Ward stepped down as showrunner sometime during Season 5, 2012 to 2014. In his October 2014 Rolling Stone interview, he says, "I quit because it was driving me nuts." He continued contributing storyboards and outlines through Season 6, 2014 to 2015, before stepping back further. He is credited as story consultant on Season 7 onward. Rebecca Sugar joined in Season 1, was promoted to storyboard artist within 1 month. Her final regular storyboard was Simon and Marcy, Season 5. She departed to focus on Steven Universe. Premiered November 4th, 2013. She returned to write Everything Stays, Season 7 Stakes miniseries, and Time Adventure series finale. She is involved in the Adventure Time movie, announced June 2024. Patrick McHale was part of the writer's room through the first half of Season 5. He departed to develop Over the Garden Wall, Cartoon Network, October 2014. He is involved in the Adventure Time movie, announced June 2024. Adam Muto became showrunner during Season 5. He held a role through the series finale and oversaw the Distant Land specials and Fiona and Cake. He is involved in the Adventure Time movie, announced June 2024. Rebecca Sugar, Patrick McHale, and Pendleton Ward are all involved in the Adventure Time movie. The most recent information available places its development as active as of the June 2024 Annecy announcement. Peak viewership, approximately 14 million weekly viewers at the show's height, circa 2012 to 2013. Season 7 premiere viewership, 1.07 million. Season 7 finale viewership, 1.15 million. Lowest rated Adventure Time season finale at the time of broadcast. Awards for work produced during the post-Golden Age period, 68th Primetime. Emmy Awards, 2016. Outstanding Individual Achievement in Animation for Stakes. Part 8, The Dark Cloud, Tom Herpich and Jason Kalowski. 68th Primetime Emmy Awards, 2016. The Hall of Egress, nominated for Short Format Animation. Annie Award, 2016. Bad Jubies won for Best Animated Television Broadcast Production for Children. Peabody Award. Adventure Time is a Peabody Award winner. Evergreen aired January 15th, 2015, Season 6. Widely considered by fans and critics as the finest single episode of the series. Fred Seibert's IndieWire quote about the wrong crowd problem was made in 2017 as the show was ending. Cartoon Network confirmed the show would conclude after Season 10 on September 29th, 2016. The final episode, Come Along With Me, aired September 3rd, 2018, 8 years and 5 months after the premiere. These are the facts of the show's production history. The Golden Age, properly dated, is approximately Seasons 3 through 5, with the strongest clustering in Seasons 3 and 4. The ending of the Golden Age coincides with, but is not reducible to, Ward stepping back from show running, Sugar departing for Steven Universe, McHale departing for Over the Garden Wall, the show's scheduling shifting to bomb weeks, and the show's audience migrating to competing productions. None of these factors alone ended the Golden Age. All of them together did. Good night. Final reflection. What it means to love something that changes. I want to close with something personal, because this video has been largely analytical and analysis has its limits. A lot of the people who will watch a video about why Adventure Time's golden age ended loved the show when they were younger. They watched it in a specific period of their lives, at a specific age with a specific kind of openness that you have when you're young, and haven't yet encountered everything that will make you more cautious and more defended. They watched I Remember You, and something happened. They watched Simon and Marcy, and something happened. They watched episodes that made them feel things they didn't have words for, about loss and time and the people you love who disappear into something else. And then the show changed, and maybe they kept watching and loved it differently, or they stopped watching and held the golden age in memory as the thing the show was. And sometimes they wondered why it felt different. This is the story of every piece of culture that matters to people. It is not uniquely the story of Adventure Time. It is the story of The Simpsons and its early seasons, of BoJack Horseman's peaks and valleys, of any long-running creative work that had a specific early period that felt like a hand reaching through the screen and touching the exact thing that needed touching. The work changes because the people who make it change, because the circumstances change, because everything changes, and the people who loved the early version carry it with them while the later version continues. The golden age of Adventure Time is preserved. It exists in the episodes which don't change. You can watch I Remember You tonight, and it will be what it was when Rebecca Sugar was dying batteries on an Omnicord and the room went quiet. You can watch Simon and Marcy, and it will be the last thing she gave the show before leaving, for something she needed to build for herself. The golden age is over, and it is also permanent. Both things are true, Anna, simultaneously. What makes a golden age? Not perfect episodes. All creative periods have uneven work, not absence of criticism. All creative work is contested. What makes a golden age is the feeling of being in the presence of a specific constellation of people and circumstances that produced something that could only have been produced then, in that specific combination. The constellation dispersed, as all constellations eventually do, but the light from it is still reaching you tonight. Pendleton Ward made a show that expressed, with extraordinary precision and warmth and strangeness, what it feels like to be an outsider who tries to understand other people by watching them carefully. He made it with people who brought their own specific quality of careful attention. They were young and they had creative freedom, and they used it to make something that changed what was possible in animation. And then the show became so successful that the conditions that produced it couldn't be maintained, and the people who made it went on to the other things their success made possible, and the show continued in their absence and made excellent work to the end. This is a good story, not a tragedy, a story about how creative work lives and changes and produces consequences and ends. A story about people who made something worth making and who were changed by making it, and who went on to make other things. The golden age of adventure. Time ended because it was alive, and things that are alive don't last forever in the same form. They grow and change and produce other things, and eventually the specific form of what they were is over and something else continues. Ward was 27 when it started. He's in his early 40s now, and he's working on the movie. Sugar is working on the movie. McHale is working on the movie. Muto is working on the movie. The specific people who made the golden age are older and changed and carrying everything they've made since, and they're making something together. The golden age is over. The adventure continues. Thank you for spending all of this time tonight. Thank you for caring enough about something that changed you to want to understand why it changed. Subscribe if you haven't. Come back. Good night. And one more detail. The Adventure Time movie is being developed with Rebecca Sugar, Patrick McHale, and Adam Muto writing, with Pendleton Ward involved. The news was announced at Annecy in June 2024. 4 people whose specific combination made the golden age are working together again on the thing they made. The Golden Age ended because they went their separate ways. Something is beginning because they are coming back together. This is also part of the story. Good night.